Today is, I think, the 24th of May. I'm a bit behind and I've got various follow-up videos to make, but I wanted to do something short and to the point today, just to upload something. And I'm calling this one the Tarot and Notes, or reminders or something like that. Because when I make a video, and you may have seen this before, I have a few notes that I write down. And these are just one or two keywords to remind me, let's say, of the order in which I want to make the points. But there's one or two words that remind me of what the point is. So one of them here, in this particular one, is I wrote L-A-N-G, which is short for language. So there are various... Thing is, at the time I mentioned that if you want to learn a language that has cognates, that is like English and French and German and Dutch, bicyclette or bicycle, you can read it and it's basically the same word. So you can follow along with the conversation because quite a lot of the words are kind of similar. So if you know, depending on what your language is and what you're trying to learn, it can take you maybe 600 hours to become reasonably fluent. But if there's a language like Japanese or Korean, which doesn't have cognates, it doesn't have words that sound the same or are spelled the same, it takes an awful lot longer, like 2,200 hours to become fluent in the language. So when I wrote down language, I knew I might mention, I didn't know exactly what I was going to say. In the same way that you turn a card, well, there's, let's say, the Emperor card, and you've read a little bit about the Emperor, or you've read a lot about the Emperor, and you've thought about it. So with the Emperor card, or with any card, you've got a number of things you might talk about, or meanings that you've learned, or ideas that you have about the particular card. So if you think of a card as a note, or a shortcut, or a reminder, that's really all you need to read cards. You don't need to know in advance what the card actually means, because you turn the card, you've got an idea of the basic meaning, and so you talk about it, but you don't have to repeat what you said last time, or what you said the last 3 times. So in the same way that I write down L-A-N-G for language, it's to remind me to talk about, for instance, how long it might take to learn, if you're an English speaker, how long it would take to learn German, or if you're an English speaker, how long it takes to learn Japanese, and I think it was 2,200 hours, which is 1 hour a day for 6 years. So I've got that I might mention. But I could also have spoken about how I learned Dutch, because I was living in Holland and I tried to learn grammar books and I would read grammar and the rest of it, and I wasn't really getting anywhere with it. So there was this book that I found called De Terroristen, which means the terrorists, and it was originally in Swedish. It had been translated into Dutch. So what I did was I opened it at page 1 and I started reading. I could follow along with the pronunciation of the words, because I'd heard Dutch spoken. But there were words like camera, and I knew some words like, can't think, sister and straat and so on, which means street. And so I knew a few basic words, and I knew enough English that I could recognize the Dutch version of the English word. So I was able to read through I didn't know most of what it was about, but I followed it anyway, and I sort of had an idea of what the story was about. And then by page 30, I was thinking in Dutch. I was reading it, and I was making sense of it, and I knew how I ended up being able to speak Dutch. I haven't spoken it for a long time, but people were quite surprised that I had made such fast progress. And it's only because I read the book in Dutch and didn't try and translate it into English. So with a card, turn it over, and you don't need to know what it means, because you want to know what sense it makes for the question. And you don't need to memorize supposed meanings that are maybe true enough in some other context, or true enough as an answer to some other question that somebody asked. But really you think about the question that the questioner has asked, and you look at the card and what sense it makes. But when you turn the card, you know you've got a few things you could talk about, but you don't need to know in advance what exactly you're going to say. You just need a card as a trigger, or as a shortcut, or as a note, or as a reminder of something about the card. So somebody today sent me an email about he was trying a first reading, and he gets kind of upset, depressed, as do we all. So he wanted to know, why does he get depressed or whatever, and he got the King of Pentacles reversed. So that can mean lack of money. Also, it can mean lack of power, because he's not the king is upside down, so he's not a king. So why do I get depressed is a good enough question to ask. What next? How do I stop being depressed is maybe more of a useful question to ask. But if you look at that King of Pentacles reversed, kings are in control. So he needs to become in control of his own life in some way. And then the king is upright. And Pentacles is money, but it also represents values. So what does he care about? What does he want to achieve? So I emailed back and said, make a list of what do you want more of, what do you want less of. And then once you've got a list, you've got a starting point, and you know what to do. And this is because, I can't remember where I heard this, but what's the opposite of depression? People usually say happiness, but the opposite of depression is not happiness, it's vitality. Because if you're depressed, you can't be bothered doing anything. You're all slumped over, you know. But if you're vital and active and doing stuff and doing things, you can't be depressed because you're not depressed. Depressed is pressed down, as if the weight of your thinking or your life has squeezed you and pressed you down. So what you do is you become vital and exercise vitality, because vita is the Latin word for life. So you're in life, you've got life, do something with it. Is one way of that's one way of looking at the King of Pentacles upside down in connection with that particular question. But if the question had been, am I going to get a promotion? And we get the King of Pentacles reversed. Upside down means no, but also the King of Pentacles, you're not capable enough for the job because you can't be a king. You don't know how to lead people or organize them. But also it's Pentacles upside down. Either you're asking for too much money, or the job isn't going to pay enough for you to make an effort. So that's very different from, why do I get depressed? It's to do with, am I going to get the promotion? So it's the same card and the same factors, a king upside down, Pentacles, which is money and values. But what we actually say and the sense we make of the card is different, and it depends on the question. Okay, that was a few minutes. So let me upload this, and then I'll be back in a couple of days with, I can't remember what. I was going to say this at the beginning, but sometimes life gets in the way. You know what I mean? Life gets in the way of making videos. Okay, that's about 10 minutes, I think. So I'll talk to you in a day or so. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.